Good afternoon, I'm Dr. Bubb, I'm Superintendent for West Ada School District, and we're here to talk a little bit about Plant Facility Levy. We're at Lake Hazel Middle School, one of our key projects on the Plant Facility Levy. A little bit background on West Ada, and so everybody can kind of get an idea of how big we are. We serve about 40,000 students over approximately 400 square miles. We go all the way from Avamore out to Kuna, and we cover areas of Boise all the way out to unincorporated area of Ada County. So it's a large area. We currently have 58 schools, and we're kind of in this unique situation in which we have both growth and we have maintenance of buildings that we're trying to address. So complete transparency, I'm not the creative one on the team, but we did come up with this idea of kids and keep improving district schools. And I want to take a moment just to talk about that and the experience that our kids have at every single one of our schools and what that looks like. Right above me, there's a leak in the ceiling that can't be fixed. And consistently, we see those leaks across the building. These are areas that aren't going to get any better. And at some point, we need to address that. Nobody drives up to a campus and says, oh my gosh, look, Lake Hazel Middle School must have gotten a new roof. But this is an imperative that we have to address because it impacts the experience that our kids have every single day in our classrooms. There also comes a certain time when kids start to reflect on the building that they're in, and they start to gain efficacy or lose efficacy based on the building that they go to school in. We believe that every one of our kids deserves a building that is in good working order, that provides good instructional opportunities, and allows them to grow as students and eventually working members of our community. When we talk about the maintenance of buildings, sometimes people get an idea that we want to build schools with marble floors and gold-plated faucets. And I'm here to tell you, that's not what we're looking for at all. We're here to meet the highest needs of our schools. As you look at this wall right here, this is what we refer to when we call it an Armstrong wall. I can hear the classroom clearly on the other side of the wall. And you can also look at the wall is torn apart, is falling apart. It's an opportunity for us to put permanent walls in our buildings, not these collapsible walls, and allow every one of our classrooms to be a classroom where learning can take place, free of distractions from our neighbors. This is the current reality of science stations at Lake Hazel Middle School. This is where kids are expected to do science projects. This is where they're expected to do dissections, right here at this station. Is this really 21st century learning? As we talk about plant facility levies, it really comes down to investing in education. And when we talk about investing in education, what we're currently funded in West Ada School District is we get about $6,955 per student. And so if you divide that out, that's what our funding from the state comes out to be. When you look at our neighbors in Boise, they sit right around $9,979 per student. And then we look at test scores. And so we look at that investment of what I would say $6,955 compared to test scores. And I think we far outperform our neighboring districts. One of the ways we compare that is through our ISATs in both math and English. The percentage of kids that are proficient at the end of each grade level. That's an important test for us to find out where our kids are, not only where our kids are on the learning scale, but also how do we compare ourselves to our neighboring districts, both inside the state and outside the state. So this is not just a conversation about the education that currently is going on, because I think that's a great return on investment. You have a very, very low cost and a very high academic achievement between our schools of choice, our CTE programs, our high academic achievement. I would say that West Ada is the best value in education, not just in the area, but in the United States. So let's talk a little bit about Plant Facility Levy and how we got to where we're at. We really started with a survey to ask our public, what did they think? One of the things that came out overwhelmingly is that our public felt like we needed to have a long-term plan to address the facility needs, both from a growth standpoint and from a facility maintenance standpoint within West Ada School District. So I asked a team of our people to really look at this differently, look at the way we address the facility needs in West Ada a little bit differently, and come up with what are the needs going to be, what are the projected needs within West Ada, both from a growth standpoint and from a facility maintenance standpoint over the next 10 years. So our team determined that to meet the needs of West Ada from both a growth standpoint and from a facility maintenance standpoint, it would take $50 million plant facility levy that would be renewable every year for the next 10 years. So why did we shift strategies? Well, in Idaho, there's really two options to fund facilities. One would be through a bond route, and the other through a plant facility route. Without getting too much into the weeds about how this works, I think it's important to really try to narrow it down to what a typical homeowner knows. A bond would be very similar to taking out a second or a first mortgage on your house. I want to remodel my house, and so I say I want to get it done right away, and I'm able to do that. We know that when we take out that mortgage on our house, that we're going to end up paying interest. The same is true with a bond. We end up paying interest. On a value of $500 million over 10 years, if we went down a bond route, it would cost taxpayers an additional $255 million in interest. That really is that last page that we sign when we sign our mortgage document, and they say you bought this house for $400,000 and this is what it's going to cost at the end of that time. On the other hand, Plant Facility Levy changes things a little bit. It allows us to do the same exact remodel, but we can remodel the kitchen because that's what we have money for this year. And then next year we can come out and we can remodel our master bedroom because that's what we have money for. The following year, we may choose to remodel the upstairs because that's what we have money for. But we don't pay any interest because we're only spending money that we currently have and are able to improve and address the growth within our district. So major projects across our district include renovation of Lake Hazel Middle School, includes Centennial High School renovation, Eagle High School, really focusing on making sure that we have educational spaces, instructional spaces that are suitable for all students, getting rid of some of those Armstrong walls, making sure that our science stations are available for kids and that are conducive for learning, things like that. Other schools that I'll just mention is we have a school in our district that is built in two different pods. And those two pods, as you can imagine, those two pods are kind of broken up into pie-shaped classrooms. If you're in classroom 2, in order to get into the hallway, you have to walk through classroom 1 every single day. So I asked one of the staff members, I said, would you just track how many times your class is interrupted by the other classroom by students coming through? And she tracked that for a week. And that classroom was interrupted 17 times a day on average. I don't know how you were as a student. I'm going to tell you how I was as a student. As somebody interrupts, I think to myself, hey, I wonder if Ken is going to the bathroom. I wonder if Ken's going to the nurse. Maybe Ken has a cavity. I see him chewing on candy all the time. I'll bet he has a cavity and he's going to the dentist's office. But my focus is no longer learning. My focus is now, where is Ken going? 17 times a day, that is an extreme disruption to the instructional process. One of the benefits of this plant facility levy is that every school in our district will receive some type of benefit, whether that be paint, whether that be flooring, that might be new bathrooms. Every school in our district will receive an impact over the next 10 years. So here we are in a place that we lovingly call the cafetorium. This is where our kids eat every single day. As you can see, the roof has been largely untouched since the school was built in 1978. This is where we commonly have pieces of the ceiling coming down, pieces that our custodial staff have to clean up, and we have to continue to mitigate to make sure that our students have a healthy area to eat every single day. One of the other objectives in this plant facility is being able to address ADA accessibility and play areas. People will ask me all the time, tell me a little about play areas. How do those impact instruction? And I will tell you, when you have play areas or playgrounds that are not suitable for all of our students to get their energy out, it impacts what they're doing in the classroom every single day. Another component of this plant facility levy is addressing growth. We really have 3 areas of growth that we really need to address. One would be in the north of our district, one in the south of our district, and our CTE center. Let's talk about the north of our district. North of our district would be in that Star area. That area is growing really, really quickly. As we speak right now, we have students that live in Star, really in a close proximity to Star Elementary School, but Star is so impacted that we're busing those kids out to Eagle every single day. If you get in your car and you drive that in the middle of rush hour traffic, you're gonna be about 45 minutes to get from Eagle Elementary School to the Star area. In the south, we have a similar situation at Hillsdale and between Hillsdale and Mary Mac. Both of those schools are impacted. They have, they're at their capacity, and so we need to be able to address growth with building a new school. For a CTE center, CTE is near and dear to a lot of our hearts. We know that it's a responsibility of K-12 education to produce kids that are going to come work in our community and have some skills when they graduate from high school. One of the ways we do that is through CTE. We used to talk about CTE being this college track or career track. In West Ada, we really talk about it being college track and career. We expect at the end of 12th grade that kids have skills to be able to be successful in college, and they have skills that introduces them right into the workforce. So let's talk a little bit about our CTE programs. 87% of the students that go to our high schools complete at least one CTE course. That's a course that explains a little bit about careers, really gets them some professional training, ranges anywhere from our certified nursing assistants to our welding programs, our pharmaceutical program, even our construction program. All of those give our kids the opportunity to be introduced to a career before they graduate from high school. Unfortunately, with all that great stuff comes great demand. We have a lot of our programs that have kids on a waiting list. Sometimes those waiting lists, we are able to meet those needs. Sometimes we have to tell students that they can't get into the program. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, one of the advantages of those programs is that it actually keeps our kids in schools. It engages them, it gets them something they're interested in, and hopefully it gets them something that they can go out and contribute to our community. Some of the areas that we'd like to expand, our welding program. We currently have a long waiting list in our welding program. We'd also like to start a cosmetology program. We heard loud and clear, not just from our community members, but also through the workforce, also through our surveys, that cosmetology is an area that is of really high importance and high demand within the Treasure Valley. Another area that we'd like to talk about is our HVAC, our plumbing and our electrical program. We don't currently have that program. We know, as I've spoken to several of our community members, that there's a high demand for that. Anybody that's gone out to try to get some of that trade labor and how do I get something done on my house, or how do we build houses faster, or any of that stuff, we know that that's of high demand. That's a skill that we can train in high school so students can go immediately into the workforce and have a positive impact in the Treasure Valley. So what benefits do these programs bring directly to our community? Well, this is just one of those benefits. Our students currently build what we call tiny homes. We have 178 veterans that we have identified that need a roof over their head. They otherwise might be homeless. We've identified an area in the Nampa area where our kids are able to build houses, put them on a trailer, get them out to our veterans out there so they have a roof over their head, they have a place to sleep. This is all done by our construction pathways, by the kids in our classes in West Ada schools. Another area that we've identified through meetings with our stakeholders, through analysis of our surveys, is this early childhood development center. We know that people are leaving the workforce because they need to stay home with their kids, or there's just no availability of early childhood care. One of the things in this CT program would be an availability for an early childhood center. Let's talk a little bit about taxes. And I hear from people all the time, and I live in West Ada as well, and so I understand tax impact. And so let's talk just for a second. And one of the things that I always do is I compare our tax rate to adjacent districts. When you look at that, you can see on this slide, Boise School District, as of 2022, sat at about $375. Kuna School District, our neighbors to the south, $292. Nampa School District, $236. Caldwell, $277. Valley View School District, $329. And Middleton School District, $224. That's at a $100,000 assessed rate. West Ada sits all the way down at $158 of assessed rate. Again, why I would go back to the best value in education. So let's talk tax impact and what is this going to do to an individual homeowner today. The way the levy will read on the ballot, it will say $89.45 per $100,000 of assessed value. It's really important to note that we also have other debt that will be falling off. Last year, our tax rate sat at $158 per $100,000 of assessed value. That rate will not go up. This will not increase the tax rate from where it was last year. This is an incredible slide to look at the difference between a bond and a plant facility scenario. In the bond scenario, for an average house of $534,000 minus the $125,000 homeowner exemption, you end up paying, as a homeowner, over the entire life of that bond, you will pay $5,569. In a plant facility levy, you will pay for the exact same amount of money, you will end up paying $3,645. That's almost $2,000 of taxpayer savings. Another slide that really just looks at the tax rate overall over a long period of time. You can look at two things on this. Number one, West Ada's tax rate in 2018 was at $377 per $100,000 of assessed value. It's down to $109 this year, and West Ada continues to be the lowest tax rate amongst all of our neighboring districts. So how do we maintain transparency? One of the things that we've done is, for the first time, we've opened up for a PFL advisory committee. This is really going to be a committee that helps us to organize and prioritize our different projects. What are we going to do first? What comes next? Most of us don't live in the construction world. It's just not something that we do. So it's an opportunity for us to elicit some of the experts in our community that can help us to both look at different opportunities, creative ways to problem solve, and ways to maintain our facilities to make sure that they're excellent, top working educational facilities. In the community, I get asked oftentimes, if this was really important to West Ada, if this was really important to the administration, if this is really important to kids, then why don't we tell people to say yes? We can't. In Idaho law, anybody that's paid by taxpayer dollars cannot advocate for a tax. So what we can do is we can inform our patrons. We can tell people the need, we can talk about the issues that we have in our schools, but we cannot tell people how to vote, and nor would I ever want to tell people how to vote. We can advocate for them to exercise their civic responsibility, and I would even say civic privilege, to be able to go to the polls and cast your vote. Thank you for joining me at Lake Hazel Middle School. This is just one of 58 schools that all need a little something to them, and over the next 10 years, we have that plan with a plant facility levy. We look forward to you being able to cast your vote on May 16th.